Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm Dr. David Hooper, and this is the Unstoppable Project. And today I want to talk about something that I think sits underneath so many other struggles people have, even if they do not always have the language for it. Because when you think about it, self-trust is the thing that holds us back a lot of the time. When we start to strip things back, confidence issues, inconsistency, procrastination, losing momentum, starting then stopping, getting frustrated with yourself, feeling like you're not where you should be, underneath a lot of that is often a trust problem. Not trust in other people, but trust in yourself. Trust that if you say you are going to do something, you will actually do it. Trust that if life gets hard, you will not immediately disappear. Trust that if you go off track, you know how to come back. Trust that you can rely on yourself even when you do not feel like it. And when that trust is weak, life can feel a bit different. From my own experience, I've found that life feels heavier. Big goals feel less achievable or even believable. Discipline feels harder. Going to the gym feels harder. Eating right feels harder. Confidence feels fragile. You don't want to go outside and socialize anymore. And you start second guessing yourself because deep down, you're not fully convinced that you'll follow through. And that's a really painful place to live. And I've spent many an hour a day, many a week, a month in that situation. And this matters to me because I know what it's like to feel far away from the person that you want to be, that I wanted to be. And I also know what it's like to slowly rebuild that trust in myself through some repeated actions. And that's what we're going to be talking about in today's episode. It's all about rebuilding that self trust so you can have that belief in yourself that you may have lost. And for me, one of the biggest places that this happened was actually through running. And not just running as an exercise, or to kind of just get fitter or to be that guy. Running kind of became a little bit of an identity for me a few years ago. It became proof that I could do something massive, and it helped my relationship with myself as well. And this isn't going to be a Running Man podcast. This is just hopefully a story that's going to help you realize how you could also build your self belief in yourself. Because becoming an ultramarathon runner for me wasn't ever about the medals or the race days. I care very little about that. It was more about becoming the person who set themselves this ginormous goal and kept the promise of working towards that goal. It wasn't even about achieving the goal, really. It was about just the process of working through it. And I'm sure you've heard that cliche line of it's about the journey, not the destination. But that's very true here when it comes to building that trust in yourself. It's about setting yourself those goals and hitting them every day, and eventually, without even realizing it, you end up at the destination without even realizing. And to me, it was about going from being this man who was once far away from an athlete. I was a morbidly obese guy, clinically depressed, didn't want to leave the house, didn't want to exercise, lethargic, unmotivated, undisciplined. And I wanted to go from that person to someone who could say, honestly, I do hard things, I keep going, and I can rely on myself even when it's really, really tough. Quite honestly, this was built through repetition. These types of changes do not happen overnight or in a day or in a week or in a month. It's building towards this consistently over months through, and when it comes to running, it was built through the runs I wanted to do, but more importantly, the runs that I didn't want to do. The good days, the bad days, the discipline was built, consistency was built, and I was able to prove myself to myself again and again until eventually I started to feel like I was an athlete. That was just through repetition. It wasn't rocket science. It was getting up and going for a run or taking my running kit and going after work. And if I'd set myself the target of I'm going to run 6 miles today, I would run 6 miles or more that day. Simple as that. And this is the start of building this self-trust with yourself. It's about setting yourself those goals that are manageable, hitting them regularly, and keeping the promises that you set yourself. And a lot of the times it's easier to keep promises to other people than to ourselves. But if you can start to do that, you're going to start to build that self trust. So we're going to be talking about how to build it, but also how we might lose it and why self trust matters so much and how we can go about beginning to earn it and build our self trust again. Because I really think that this is one of the most powerful tools you can develop in your life, the ability to rely on yourself. It's an incredible thing to be able to say that you can do. So, what even is self trust? We talk a lot about confidence, but not enough about self trust. And to me, they aren't the same thing. Confidence is more of just a feeling in different situations. But self-trust is a bit deeper than that. It's more about the relationship you have with yourself and your own words. It's the belief that when you say you're going to do something, there's a good chance that you will do it. It's that belief that when life gets hard, you'll not instantly abandon yourself. It's the belief that if you wobble, you know how to come back. And that's powerful because confidence without that self trust, it's very fragile. You can hype yourself up. You can feel motivated for a day or two. You can say all the right things. But if deep down your own history tells you that quite often you stop or you quit or you drift or you disappear, when things get uncomfortable, then that confidence is going to start to feel a little bit shaky. And I think that's where a lot of people live. They don't necessarily lack desire or ambition, or they don't have a lack of vision. What they lack is evidence that they can rely on themselves. And that is why self trust matters so much. It's not built from what you say about yourself, it's built from what your life keeps proving for you. The difficult thing, though, about self trust is that most people don't lose it all at once. It's lost gradually. It gets worn down in small moments when life gets really hard. You know, you will start on Monday. You say you'll start on Monday and you don't. You say this time it'll be different and it's not. You tell yourself you will stick to the plan, and then by Wednesday you've disappeared. You promise yourself you'll go for that run or make the call or eat better or post the content or finish the task or have the conversations, and then you don't. And one broken promise on its own doesn't seem like much, but they add up. And that is the part that a lot of us miss. Every time you repeatedly prove to yourself that your own word is shaky, the relationship with yourself changes. You start to take your own intentions less seriously. You start making plans without fully believing in them. You start setting goals that feel nice in theory, but hollow in practice because some part of you has already learned not to trust the version of you who makes the promise. And that's brutal because now you are no longer just fighting the external challenge. You're also fighting your own internal history. And I think that is where a lot of our frustration comes from. People say they want more. They say they are going to change. They say they're ready, but deep down, they do not fully believe themselves anymore. That is what a lack of self-trust feels like. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it is just this quiet internal shrug, the sense of, yeah, maybe, but we've said things like this before. And that's really, it's an upsetting place to be. And I have been there for a long period of time. For me, one of the most powerful things where I rebuilt my self-trust, as I've mentioned, was getting back into running. And again, like I mentioned, it wasn't about fitness particularly or losing weight, because I'd already lost weight by then. It was more that I wanted to set myself a big goal and actually get to the start line and keep the promise to myself, because I'd signed up for marathons before and half marathons and just pulled out because I hadn't kept up with my training regime, that type of thing. But I wanted to prove that I could keep a promise to myself. I wanted to prove that I could do something hard repeatedly. And I wanted to prove that I could become someone different by being consistent. And it was also going to be proof that I did not have to be the person who I kind of was moving away from, which was a morbidly obese, redundant, clinically depressed man. And that, that mattered a lot to me. I wanted to see myself as this athlete who I'd lost, because I had been a junior academy football player in the UK. I'd ran for the north of England. I played cricket. I was very athletic and sporty, and I'd kind of lost that because, during 2017, when I was morbidly obese, the idea of me becoming an ultramarathon runner would have sounded ridiculous. Not slightly unlikely, just ridiculous. So what changed is a few things. Not just the fact I started to run obscene amounts of miles, but what changed was that I just kept repeating running, going running every other day. And that's where that trust was built. And there's something powerful about lacing up your shoes and going again, doing the session, keeping the promise, ticking it off, showing up the next day, running when you have DOMs in your legs, running when you might have a blister, safely, obviously. And it's always the end. I enjoy exercise, but knowing that you've finished a session and you've kept that promise makes me feel so damn proud. So it wasn't that every run was magical or every run felt good or that I was always motivated. 9 times out of 10, I was not motivated. But because every time you do it, you're kind of getting this message of, I am this person who follows through. I can do hard things. You're saying to yourself, my word means something. And over time, those messages build up, just like they do in a negative sense when they erode at your self-trust. They also build up as well. And that's essentially what happened to me. I didn't wake up one day and suddenly felt like an ultramarathon runner. The identity that surrounded that was built through repetition, through the miles I did, through the commitment, through the sweat, through the discipline, through the hard work, through the not stopping every time it felt hard. And the beautiful thing about that is that the identity becomes earned. It's not imagined, it's not wished for, it is earned. And I think one of the most overlooked truths in personal growth is that repetition changes identity far more than intensity does. Let me tell you what I mean by that. People love dramatic moments. They love the idea of breakthroughs and comebacks and huge decisions and big declarations. And of course, I do too. I love that. And those moments matter. But to be honest, identity is built more quietly than that. It's built through these repetitions that I keep banging on about. In my example, you go for the run, then you go again, then you go again, then you go again on a day you don't want to, then you go again after a terrible week, then you go again when the weather is rubbish, then you go again when your mood is low, then you go again because that is just what you do now. David Goggins says a great line. It's when the alarm goes off in the morning and everything in your being says, I'm not going. You just simply tell yourself, this is what we do now. And that, to me, hearing that is just so, so powerful. And that's how identity hardens. And I think that is exactly why running was so powerful to me. It gave me a place to practice consistency in a very real, tangible way. It was not abstract. It was not theoretical. It was there in black and white. Did you do the run or not? Did you keep the promise or not? Did you show up or not? That level of simplicity is actually really powerful because when life feels complicated, there is something deeply grounding about a practice that keeps asking you the same question over and over again. Can I rely on you? And every time you answer yes, something in you strengthens. That is what happened to me. Bit by bit, the version of me who once felt far away from discipline started to become someone who trusted himself more. Not because it was suddenly perfect, but because I had built evidence, real evidence, enough evidence that eventually I stopped hoping I might become someone stronger and started knowing I was becoming him. And that was a really big mindset shift for me. I think one of the reasons people resist discipline is because they see it as harsh. They see it as a punishment, as restriction, as some grim, joyless thing you have to force yourself into. But the older I get and the more wise I get, the more I think discipline is one of the clearest forms of self-respect. Because what is discipline really? It is doing what you said you would do. It is holding the line when your feelings wobble. It is choosing the long-term version of your life over the short-term comfort of this moment. That is not punishment. That is care. That is someone saying, I matter enough to follow through. And I think running taught me that in a really direct way. Every time I trained when I didn't feel like it, it was an act of self-respect. Every time I choose the run over the excuse, it was an act of self-respect. Every time I returned after a wobble, it was an act of self-respect. That matters because I think a lot of people trying to build confidence without first rebuilding self-respect struggle. It's very, very difficult. Confidence grows much more naturally when your actions start giving you reasons to respect yourself again. Not fake reasons, real ones. Whether you kept your word or you showed up or you did the rep or you returned when it was hard, whatever standard you held, that builds something real. Now, I don't want this to sound like I'm saying the key is never slipping, because that's not real life. Everybody slips and has off days, terrible weeks, terrible months. There's these seasons where you drift and feel a bit lost or lose momentum. It's completely human. It's natural. It happens to everybody. The real question isn't whether you slip or not. It's more about what you do next. Do you return quickly, or do you let that one day or that one wobble become a collapse? Because that's where we lose weeks and months and years. It's not the missed run that does the damage. It's the story that we attach to that missed run. I've blown it. I'm back to square one. I've lost everything. What's the point? I knew I couldn't do this. And suddenly, one missed day becomes a missed month. And that's where the self-trust gets damaged, really quite badly. And it's not by imperfection, but it's almost by this self-abandonment. And one of the most powerful lessons running's taught me was that running matters more than perfection. Just come back. If the week was messy, come back. If the run was missed, come back. If the motivation disappeared, come back. If life knocked you sideways, come back. That builds trust too. In some ways, it even builds a deeper kind of trust because now you're not just proving you can follow through when life is clean. You are proving you can return when life gets messy. And that's incredibly powerful. It's resilient, and it's one of the biggest things I took from running into other areas of my life. What I found really interesting though is that the trust I built through running, it didn't just stay in running. It spilled into everything else. Once you start proving to yourself in one area that you can rely on yourself, it changes how you carry yourself in other areas too. Changes how you see challenge, or how believable your goals feel, or how you respond to discomfort, or how quickly you recover from setbacks, or how seriously you take your own potential, because you have evidence now. You don't just have positive thinking, which is half the battle, by the way, but you also have this proof that goes along with it. And I think that is one of the reasons endurance sport can be so powerful. It doesn't just train the body, it trains the relationship you have with yourself. It asks things of you, it exposes you, it forces honesty, it removes excuses. And if you stay with it long enough, it can build a very deep kind of trust. For me, that trust mattered in business too, because when you're building something, uncertainty is everywhere. There are hard days, messy days, pressure, doubt, setbacks, times where you wonder whether you're doing enough or moving fast enough to get it right. And in those moments, it helps massively if you have some internal evidence that says, I know how to keep going. I know how to return. I know how to do hard things even when I do not feel like doing them. That is not just a running lesson, it's a life lesson. If you're listening to this and you know your self trust is not where you want it to be, I want to say this clearly. It can be rebuilt, but it probably will not be rebuilt through one giant promise. That's what a lot of us try. They make this huge declaration, huge plan, a huge commitment. This is it. Everything will change now. And then the plan is so big, so intense, so unrealistic that we just can't hold on to it. And the trust gets damaged again. I think the better way is smaller and more honest steps. Start with something you can keep, not something that sounds impressive, something that is real. A run, a walk, a workout, a bedtime, a boundary, a task, a small daily promise, and then keep it, and then keep it again, and keep it again. Not because the action itself is magic, but because every time you follow through, you are depositing trust back into the relationship. That is what rebuilding self trust looks like. It's slow, it's repetitive, it's sometimes boring, but it's incredibly powerful. And I think this is where we need patience, because if your self trust has been damaged over years, you're not going to repair it in one weekend. You repair it in the same way it was damaged over time. But this time, it's in the right direction. If you are listening to this and you feel tired of your own inconsistency, tired of making promises you don't keep, tired of drifting, tired of starting over, then I really want you to know you are not beyond repair. You're not doomed to the version of yourself that keeps stopping. You're not permanently disqualified from discipline. You're not stuck with the identity you've built so far. But you do need to start giving yourself different evidence. And that is the work. Not bigger goals, different evidence. Evidence that you can follow through. Evidence that you come back to. Evidence that your words can start meaning something to you again. And yes, at first it may feel small, it may feel unimpressive, it may feel like it's not enough, but do not underestimate the power of a kept promise. One kept promise becomes two, two becomes a week becomes a month becomes a new standard becomes a new identity. And that is how lives change. That's how I went from being someone who would once have thought the idea of an ultramarathon laughable to someone who now sees endurance as part of who I am. And again, it wasn't through a massive heroic act. It was through repetition, through discipline, through returning every time I failed. And I earned my self-trust. And that is available to you too. So if there's one thing I want you to take from this episode, it is this. Self-trust is not something you find, it is something you build. It is built every time you keep your word, every time you show up when it will be easier not to, and every time you return instead of disappearing. That is how the relationship with yourself changes. That's how confidence becomes more solid. And that is how identity shifts from who you might become to who you are actively proving yourself to be. If you're in a season where you feel frustrated with yourself, where your own promises feel shaky, or where you are tired of the stop-start cycle, then maybe the answer is not to demand perfection from yourself. Maybe the answer is to choose one honest promise, start keeping it, then keep it again, then keep it again. Because every kept promise is a vote for the person you want to become. And over time, those votes become the life that you want to live. If this episode resonated with you, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and come and find us online at Dr. David Hooper. I'll be posting further details about the Unstoppable Project on Instagram and LinkedIn and TikTok and YouTube and everywhere that you consume your content so you can keep up to date with this journey. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate the support. And until next time, stay unstoppable.